Welcome to this gathering hosted by the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bowling Green. Whether you are here in person or online, we are so glad that you're joining us. My name is Ryan Thomas. I didn't expect to be here this morning to play the role of service associate, but things worked out that way, so I'm here, and I appreciate any and all grace we might be able to give each other today. A reminder to please set our cell phones to quiet so we can be fully present. We are a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, however you identify, wherever you come from, and whoever you love, you are welcome here. Our Sunday services are different each week so that we can honor and learn from a wide array of traditions and beliefs. Today is a different service. We shifted some things around. We know that elections are coming up on Tuesday, and so we chose to select a service that was designed by the Unitarian Universalist Social Justice team, which you can learn more about at uusj.org if you wish. And today's message was written by the Reverend Peggy Clarke, and I'll be reading her message. This morning our chalice will be lit by Michelle Steiner. If you are at home, feel free to light your own chalice. Join us in singing number 362. Spirit of life, who knows us each by name, yet is beyond all naming, ground of being, always changing, always becoming, out on the cusp between what is and what could be, Spirit of becoming, in this hour we spend together, remind us how far we've come and how far love and justice are calling us to go. Come, let us worship together. We're going to start off with a hymn, one of my favorites, Siahamba, number 1030. And I encourage you to use the hymnal, number 1030. There's some fun harmony parts and even some counterpoint parts.
Right here.
1030 in the teal hymnal.
And if you don't know how to sing harmony, that should not stop you. It never stops us. It never has stopped us before. Okay.
forgot that Kukanyencuencos is always a little confusing. And now we're going to have a reading by Diane Lewis called Prayer.
Prayer written by Reverend Kristen Schmidt. Spirit of life, source of all, to this beautiful place and hallowed time, we bring hearts grateful for life's blessings and broken for life's suffering. We give thanks for this new day, for love and beauty, comfort and kinship, for the mysterious way the new springs out of the old, the possible out of the seemingly impossible. We hold in our hearts leaders in every nation who are struggling to respond to all manner of crises. People displaced by war, climate crisis, and political repression, all those upon whose backs national policies fall. We pray for mercy and compassion to be in and with and among leaders of all kinds, for them to be filled with the spirit that helps us all to do the right thing, even when it's hard or politically unpopular. We lift up one another today, and we lift up our very own hearts. For in this life, it is so easy to miss the mark, to behave in ways that don't reflect who we are at our best. May the care and support we find here today give us comfort amid our sorrows and fears. Enable us to let go of our egos and say sorry, make amends, and forgive when the time is right. May this faith and congregation, imperfect as they may be, help us know that we are loved just as we are, but too much to let us stay that way. And when it seems like nothing will ever get better or the world is about to end, may the power that makes all things new remind us how often that feeling signals that something new is just beginning. Amen. Blessed be.
And now a story for all ages, and Rhonda Stanley has agreed to read for us.
Good morning. Unitarian Universalism is a living, changing faith. Being a living, changing faith means that any one of us can change what we believe if we experience a deeper truth that is different or new. But in order to change, we have to be open to new thoughts, new ideas, and new experiences. Today I'm going to tell you a story about one congregation that made a big change many years ago. And they made this change because a group of people got together and leveraged their collective power. That means they came together and made a plan about how they would try to get their church to make a change. Jessica York, Director of Congregational Life at the UUA, wrote a wonderful version of this story. This is a retelling from Reverend Kristen Schmidt. The story takes place 75 years ago when most faith communities in the United States were segregated. Segregation was one way the United States tried to keep Black people, in particular, separated from white people. Some states required churches to be segregated. Others were segregated because all the other churches around them did it, or because that's just the way things had always been done. We think of our UU faith as progressive, liberal trendsetters, but in 1948, the first Unitarian Society of Chicago was segregated. Their church was in a racially diverse neighborhood where people of many colors lived, but only white people were allowed to go to that church. One day, a large group of church members started to organize to collect their power and take action against racism in their church. The church's minister, Reverend Leslie Pennington, and a man named James Luther Adams were ready to move things forward. Adams was a famous theologian and ethicist. He taught at the Meadville Lombard Theological School, and he was on the congregation's board. Adams and Pennington together made a proposal to the church board to desegregate the church. They knew this was the right thing to do. They knew it was what their faith guided them to do. And most church members wanted the church to welcome people no matter what color their skin was. But one member of the board didn't. "Your new program is making desegregation into a creed," he said. "You are asking everyone in our church to say they believe desegregating or inviting, even recruiting people of color to attend church here is a good way to tackle racism. What if some members don't believe this?" And so they talked and argued. Eventually, everyone became tired and frustrated. They were, as we say in the DC area, gridlocked. Just then, Reverend Adams remembered a piece of wisdom. It's best to listen twice as much as we speak. So instead of arguing his point of view yet again, he asked the person who really didn't want the church to desegregate a question. "What do you say is the purpose of this church?" Somehow that got everyone's attention. What was the purpose of the church? The board member Adams had been arguing with thought for a moment, and said, "Okay, Jim, the purpose of this church is to get hold of people like me and change them." And that's the story of how the first Unitarian Society of Chicago successfully desegregated. The problems we face here and now in 2023 sometimes seem gridlocked, just like the Chicago Church's board was in our story. Challenges we face as individuals and families, congregations, and neighborhoods, and even as a whole country, can feel so big that we'll never find a way through them. And yet people have, again and again, found our way through massive challenges, sometimes by making a way when there was none to begin with, not by bullying one another, not through coercing one another, but by staying at the table, staying in conversation, by refusing to stay quiet when we see injustice, by collecting the power we each have and leveraging that collective power in the service of our faith and values. Just like singing with hundreds of people or taking to the streets with thousands of other people showing up for justice, taking action with a lot of other people is powerful. And after today's service, every single person will be given an opportunity to take action in the service of our faith and values. But our chance to leverage our collective power with other UUs doesn't end today. If you or your congregation would like to learn how you can take collective action at the federal level to help things get done at Capitol Hill, I hope you'll be in touch with UUs for Social Justice at uusj.net. And I hope you like today's story.
Thank you, Rhonda. And now we're going to sing the children out, the children's recessional, hymn number 413. We'll now have a few moments for meditation, reflection, and prayer. The singing bowl will lead us into that silence. After the silence, you're invited to join in the song, Spirit of Life. The words will be on the screen. I mentioned that the service was designed by the Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Organization, and you'll have seen Reverend Kristen Schmidt, thank you, up here. She was contributing quite a bit of the writing for this. Also, the Reverend Peggy Clarke wrote the message. They are both members of the executive directors for the UUSJ. Power Sunday, leveraging our collective. TikTok might say men think about the Roman Empire daily, but it's the American Empire that has my attention. Mirroring the innocence of the mid and late 20th century, I grew up believing that the United States is the best nation that has ever existed. That opinion came from my white immigrant family, grateful largely for opportunity and the freedom of economic prosperity. But over time, our democracy has begun to fade, and whether or not children are told this is the best nation in the history of nations doesn't alter our current downward trajectory. As much as we like to say we've been a democracy since 1776, or maybe from the ratification of the Constitution in 1788, we've mostly been a democracy in process until the full realization of our potential with the passing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. With the codification of inclusion at the ballot booth, the United States of America became worthy of the admiration of democracies, both realized and struggling around the world. Our system of government, standing on a strong foundation of law, had the full support of our nation's people and our institutions, creating what we thought was an unbreakable network ensuring equal access to our founding promise of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But as we approach the 60th anniversary of that peak moment, most Americans are aware that our democracy is on a downward slide. There are many key markers that support this suspicion, including our decline on the Polity Index that moved us below the threshold of full democracy in recent history. President Joe Biden warned us just a few weeks ago that democracy is at risk, that the threat to our institutions and our Constitution is serious, noting extremism and increasingly disturbing threats of violence on our leaders. Of course, we don't need scholars or even our president to tell us what we can see and hear for ourselves. The words chaos, dysfunction, and infighting have become common in our national headlines as our government grinds to a halt over and over again. Strong, healthy democracies require what we call civil society. Civil society consists of all the voluntary organizations where people gather, autonomous from the state. These groups might have some state support, funding, or interaction, but they are independent of state controls and have their own agendas and goals. They are concerned with public ends, but they aren't seeking state power. They exist for many reasons, but one is to influence law, culture, and the ways we live together. They are part of a larger piece of community living, valuing pluralism, inclusion, and a wide range of life experience and thought. The organizations that populate civil society include educators who advocate for curriculum development to train the next generation of thinkers and leaders, climate activists who push against corporate influence, and librarians who ensure access to a diversity of ideas, and workers who leverage their collective power to ensure fair wages and protections. Civil society includes museums that preserve our history, dance companies that celebrate self-expression, community theaters where new philosophies are given language and an audience, Cults aren't part of civil society because they want to separate people from the mainstream. Yoga groups don't generally qualify because they have no interest in influencing public life. Churches, on the other hand, do. So do all of our UU organizations like Ministry for Earth, State Action Networks, and UUSJ, our UU Voice on the Hill. All of these institutions are part of the fabric of civil society, without which we don't have an authentic democracy. Scholars tell us that democracies don't collapse because of a single influential person. They collapse because the people who should know better align themselves with stronger, more dangerous personalities. They themselves aren't fascists, communists, or extremists. They're just too weakly committed to democracy and are ultimately opportunists who say what they think they need to say to get or keep power. Civil society is one of the key levers to keep these people in check. Groups that are themselves run democratically, giving everyone the experience of having a voice and a vote, with deep membership rosters of concerned and engaged citizens, or public forums for open discussion, become a counterbalance to self-serving individuals. These organizations create occasions for influence and can reward opportunists with the popularity or power they seek without requiring them to compromise their commitment to democratic systems. They can also create and engage systems of social accountability that keep some of these people in check. Totalitarian nations have no civil society. The more civil society in a country, the more democratic it can be. There are very few fully totalitarian nations, but we can see these systems of government increase as civil society decreases. North Korea is completely totalitarian, with no visible counter to the current government. China used to be more complete, but civil society has been growing there. When nations like Russia want to increase governmental control, they shut down parts of civil society, as does every autocrat seeking to consolidate his or her power. Voluntary organizations are a crucial part of any healthy, transparent, and legitimate democratic system. We can determine the vitality of a democracy by the integration of these groups in the fabric of the nation. Faith-based organizations are historically some of the most difficult to terminate because they are often seen as the moral centers of the community. Shutting them down forces the government to admit a lack of concern with morality, an act most citizens find alarming. Instead, many authoritarian regimes work to befriend religious institutions, seeking to align religious power centers with their own. We can see this happening here in the US, with evangelical churches who have become supporters of some of the more dangerous factions in our current system. This makes our own position as a liberal religious denomination all the more necessary in our current political climate. We continue to have the moral authority to counter the current trajectory and can stand against the wave of conservative religious alignment with the radical right-wing political movement. Our existence, our internal health and strength is an essential part of what can turn the tide of American democratic legitimacy. It is our witness to pluralism, an embrace of science as a source of truth, our own democratic structures, our collective voice for choice, for education, for inclusion, and our training of a new leadership class that demonstrates the need for our witness and the centrality of our voice as part of civil society right now, at this moment in history. Sadly, this comes at the same time religion is on a steep decline in American culture. Across the country, Unitarian Universalist churches have seen a dramatic reduction in membership. We've lost 18,000 children from our RE programs over the last 10 years. We've lost 100,000 members over the last 50. In 2020, the average size of a UU congregation was half the size as 20 years earlier. We're not alone in this freefall, and as liberal religion declines in national influence, so does American democracy. I don't think these things are unrelated, says Reverend Peggy Clarke. Just as people are turning away from institutional religion, the demons of authoritarianism are gaining ground. When the moral centers lose influence and can no longer claim to be our collective conscience, it's easier for alternatives to take root. Our voices get weaker and are harder to hear. But let's not pretend we're inaudible. There are close to 200,000 people in UU churches. We have not given up our space at the table nor our moral authority, even if the tide of totalitarianism hopes to wash over us. This is evidenced, at the very least, by your decision to bring this service to your own congregation today, as so many other UU congregations are doing. We are interdependent, interconnected, and committed to holding up our shared liberal religious values. Power Sunday comes from UUs for Social Justice. UUSJ was founded originally by a circle of UU churches in the Washington, D.C. area who wanted to leverage their geographic location to influence the federal conversation. About 2 years ago, UUSJ broke out of that model and opened to UUs around the country to become our collective voice, not just those positioned so closely to DC power centers. UUSJ is a small organization with no full-time staff, like so many of our UU groups doing the work of our faith, but with the help of their executive director, have had an outsized influence in federal policy conversations. This worship service is designed to get the word out about both our UU potential as a faith community through the work of UUSJ in these national discussions, and to hold up one of our own institutions, also part of civil society, in need of support in these fragile days of our democracy. In future years, Power Sunday will include an opportunity for advocacy so we as UUs can leverage our collective power. Scholars might tell us that American democracy is deconsolidating, but it is far from collapse. Even through significant challenges, the system is holding. With the kickoff of Power Sunday, UU congregations can step into our moral authority in partnership with each other and other liberal religious members of civil society to hold strong against the tide of authoritarianism. Through our connection with UUSJ, the building of our collective power on the Hill, and as a partner with other denominations also holding back the waters of authoritarianism, Unitarian Universalists play a key role in keeping our democracy strong. Today, in churches around the country, we are raising our shared consciousness, holding up our critical place in the democratic fabric of our nation, tuning our collective voice, and reminding Unitarian Universalists that we are necessary, that we are not alone, and that in this fragile moment of American history, we are powerful. Reverend Peggy Clarke. And in gratitude for their offering of a service today, we are also offering up a moment for recognition of the work that we all do. This congregation, the work we do, is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who contribute. The offering is a sacrament of the free church. You may place your donation in the plate on the way out, use the QR code on the screen, or donate via our website. As we enjoy the music, the offering will be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values And if you feel like going directly to uusj.org, you can donate directly there. For our music, we're going to have Won't Back Down from Tom Petty. Thank you for these gifts. May we use them wisely. We have a moment now for community news. And there are two things I'd like to call out, one of which is Thanksgiving dinner, yes, which will occur on Thanksgiving Day. Do we have a time? Midday-ish, probably. So watch for that update. 2 p.m. And also today at 1:15, we have our dance lessons with Fred Gott. Yeah. Please.
Sorry about that. I didn't have time to get to you before the service. So jumping, like the whole world is jumping to Christmas, okay, we will have a Christmas Eve morning Sunday service. So 12:24 in the morning. We also would like to know if there are any families who would like to have their children dedicated on that morning. So if we have families who would like child dedications at that time, we will include that in our service. And of course, we also have Christmas Day dinner on Christmas Day.
If you have any interest in learning more about membership, please feel free to reach out to our members of the membership committee. If you'd raise your hands, see 3 right here. See those faces? 4. Oh, and 5 there. Of course, there's more information about us in our entryway, the bulletin board, etc. Facebook, YouTube. We're going to have a final hymn before we close out our session online, and it's going to be number 298, Wake Now My Senses. We now bid farewell to those who have joined us online. We hope you found the service meaningful, and we invite you to join us again. Be well and go in peace.